Hello and welcome to Future Sci Chat. This is our second episode. This week we're talking about alternative energy. That being said, I'm here today with two very special people to me. Their names are Mike Trell and Nick Maddox. How you guys doing?
Pretty
Doing
good.
great.
Good to hear. So as I mentioned, this week we'll be talking alternative energy. And before we get too far into things, I just want to talk, because I've had discussions with you guys this week about what are we qualifying as alternative energy and what are we qualifying as I don't know, classical energy. So for me, alternative energy is something that's either we get from the environment, like from wind or solar. Nuclear is probably considered alternative, although I don't think it necessarily should be. And then on the classical side of things, you have natural gas, oil, and what's the other one? Coal. What do you guys
Could we
think?
go under like a sustainable energy umbrella?
Yeah. So like, for instance, we had the conversation about whether hydroelectric is really renewable, and obviously the water cycle renews itself. But we got into the discussion of then in that case, natural gas technically renews itself, and oil, because we're constantly turning plant life, like dead life, into new coal.
Hydrocarbons.
Yeah. Well, that would be again like sustainable versus renewable.
Right.
Like, because coal does regenerate, but it takes a really long time, and it's not really a sustainable resource in that sense.
And we're talking alternative in the carbon emission sense as opposed to renewable in the sustainable sense, because those are two different things, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's overlap, but I think they're still different.
Basically, if you're burning something, I'm going to be on the side of saying it's less alternative, even if it is alternative. Like
More sustainable, but not. Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to talk about switchgrass at some point, Nick. But you're still
Thank God.
burning the switchgrass. So that being said, let's talk a little bit. You guys each have sort of special insights into different regions, as evidenced by your taglines.
You could also say that we're like biased, or
Well, Nick, I know you're biased. We'll find out if Mike is biased in terms of energy.
his tagline wouldn't suggest any bias whatsoever.
No, it wouldn't. Only because it looked like he was joking as he turned it on.
It's a tongue-in-cheek, but it's still semi-true.
So why don't we start with, maybe we'll start with classical energy and then we'll start with what's good about it, and then we'll move to why we should and are slowly switching to alternative energies. Mike, can you shed on any light on oil, natural gas side of things in terms of what's good for the humanity as a whole?
Well, it's bountiful. There's a lot of it, but depending on what you're trying to extract, it can be expensive, and it can be hard on the environment, again, depending on how you're extracting it. Obviously, by now everyone's heard of the oil sands in Alberta, and particularly the mining, and that's obviously just the same way that you'd mine anything else. You just strip away the surface until you reach your resource, and then you excavate it and continue ad nauseum until your area is exploited.
Until you have Sudbury.
So then there's obviously the drilling part too, and that's its own thing. And both technologies have come a long way, but and they both seem to be the most practical way to get energy sources for our current population. But that's why we're having this discussion today, is to look at the alternatives that people are coming up with.
Yeah, so like into the future, because
right.
as
even what people are doing now, but how we can improve.
Yeah, what we have in the back of our minds is that these fuel sources aren't going to last forever.
Right.
And probably need something new soon.
Eventually.
Yeah. So that's I mean, Nick, do you want to talk about nuclear energy?
I'd like to add on to like what's good about conventional
Yeah,
energy
sure. Go
sources, if
for
I
it.
could briefly. Like, if you look at it as my blog once did, from energy return on energy invested, so like EROEI, uh, like coal, oil, and natural gas are all tremendous in terms of the energy return you get on the energy invested into getting that resource out of the ground. Like the gushers, the first gushers in Texas returned like the energy invested 100-fold, like literally 100-fold. So there's just, it's a tremendous amount of energy that you can get super, super easily. And then the fact that all you have to do is burn it to convert that to usable energy, it's really easy to do and just super efficient in that sense.
Well, it's not straight burning. You gotta convert it still, but
Yeah, in some cases,
basically.
Coal, though?
Oh no, not coal. Well, as far
Yeah,
as I know,
okay.
maybe not
Yeah,
coal.
sorry. With oil, you have to
he,
refine it a bit,
Yeah.
but
you didn't hear it, but there was a slight tone change in his voice, and he switched from oil to coal. You didn't hear it, obviously, but it was there. I heard it, Nick. You
this
went
is
straight
my coal voice, and this is my oil voice.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, I can definitely see why corporations and people have gotten rich off these things because there's so much energy to be gotten out of it. But obviously, those same gushers that they found in Texas when they first discovered them are either being sucked dry now or have long gone dry, and they're sort of now looking anywhere they can in the world to try to find new sources of oil and natural gas.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not seeing gushers anymore. A lot of the offshore stuff, there's still, you could almost call them gushers. If they'd be gushing if they didn't have better control over how they're drilling their wells.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
gushing is no bad.
yeah, but no, there are very high producing wells in offshore, but those are really, really, really expensive to drill.
Yeah.
So anything onshore, you're going to have to do either some sort of production method for pumping or enhanced oil recovery, as far as putting something into the ground to get it out. But yeah, either way, there's multiple times your energy investment that you return.
Right, and they're still making lots of money, and they're still fighting in the Middle East and with U.S. interests because of these sources of money. That there's obviously still reason to fight over those resources. Um, I've heard an argument recently that these companies, like big companies like Halliburton and them, are actually making investments into alternative energy because they see where the future is going. Like it would be stupid not to do it, and so they're basically just they're riding the wave as long as they can while they're preparing for the next phase of their business, which I mean seems smart, but at the same time environmentally it's pretty obviously not good in the short term and into the long term.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, for companies who are doing that kind of investment, the pessimistic side of me or cynical side of me says that it's for financial reasons, not for environmental.
right.
As far as the livelihood of their business, as opposed to, oh yeah, this is good for the environment. I think it's coincidental that it is, and it works out well. And yeah, it's more of a necessity than just desire to be different, maybe.
Well, in fairness, like these companies, these massive energy companies are publicly traded and have a legal responsibility to their shareholders to maximize profits. And like they're not going to do that by being like responsible citizens of the world.
Right.
It's just,
Nobody ever has, and
Well, it's a matter of doing what they're doing responsibly, not trying to do something that is going to give less profit in a maybe more responsible manner.
yeah.
sure.
So, are there any other good sides that you guys can think of the conventional energy sources in the 19th, 20th century?
Plastics came out of it,
Yeah,
as
I
far
want
as
to
I
talk
know.
about plastics because while we do still have oil, we're using more and more plastics. They were first synthesized from oil in the 30s, 40s, that area,
That
and now
sounds about right.
yeah, that's if I recall, it was around there. And now basically our ocean, any cup of ocean you scoop out anywhere top, like surface to the very bottom, you're going to find plastic in it. And so even if we do stop using oil for fuel, we're still going to need it, or we're still going to use it for plastic. It's not like we're going to stop drilling oil because everyone has an electric car. These companies are still going to be able to sell this product.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming
Also,
that, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say, like, as far as I think Nick, when you mentioned about the energy and energy out, does that count the actual energy to get the energy as opposed to energy to extract? Like, as far as the combustibility of hydrocarbons, like nuclear is obviously the biggest. You know, once you get the reaction going, it just multiplies on itself. But as far as burning biofuels or hydroelectric and that kind of stuff, what's the energy and energy out for that? Or you know?
It's the estimate can vary based on like how much the individual person doing the estimate, like how much they take into account. Like theoretically, you should go over the full cycle of everything. So for oil, you would talk about extraction, refinement, transport, like everything.
Oh, okay.
And then measure that against like what you're getting from combustion or however you're exploiting it.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Interesting.
So now I guess we'll move on to the downsides of these conventional fuels. We've talked a bit about them, but for me, I would say the biggest one is, I mean, in terms of the environment, there's global warming, and there's the fact that stuff like plastic is basically just everywhere now, and it's starting to wreak havoc on the oceans. It's starting to wreak havoc on lakes. There was even a ban in one of the northern states, I think it was Minnesota, on microbeads in all kinds of things like skin exfoliants, anything that has these little tiny plastic beads that are supposed to cut your dead skin off. And I don't know.
Well, they would say gently exfoliate your dead skin off, but
when you look at them up close, they're basically jagged pieces of plastic. But
yeah. So is it the plastic? Because I know some use like a pumice rock type thing. Are those banned too?
I don't think they're banning those. I think they're saying that they're looking for different ways to do it. The ones that use pumice, I think, or other sort of those kinds of minerals are fine.
Okay.
And they're saying that they're already looking. Again, these companies are aware of the talk that's going on, so they're already looking into using things like ground up fruit pits. Just any sort of. I actually had the same reaction, Nick. It seems
that's
weird.
Not a bad idea. Like at first glance, it's like, why on earth? And then you think it's like, well, yeah, okay.
Yeah. He'll do the job.
It seems weird, but sure, that'll. I assume like people. It's not a pit that people have eaten and thrown away. These are pits
processing,
mechanically removed. Yeah, because I don't know what. Because I'm like I wouldn't be grossed out, but I know there are a lot of people who would be grossed out. Like, oh, someone ate this pit and now I'm rubbing it, even though there's no germ contamination or anything there.
So the company sets up in like Vancouver, and then invites all the homeless people to come in and like eat all the fruit they want, just so long as they give them the pits back.
Yeah,
like, come on, guys, the fruit isn't pitting itself. Come on.
Or you set up like a deposit type system where whenever you buy a peach, you pay like 5 cents, and when you return your pit, you get 5 cents back.
That sounds great. That really did.
See, like college students going back with like big bags of pits.
People walking around and just picking up. Oh, that's horrible. So aside from, I mean, the environmental concern in terms of global warming, they've even, I was on the Daily Show last week, which is my main source of news for the States. Even they had the environmental, the heads of the EPA for Reagan, both Bushes and Nixon, I believe it was, the 4 Republican presidents, all testify in front of Congress that, listen, Republicans, global warming's happening, we have to take steps to stop it. Um, and so, I mean, in terms of, I don't want to put you guys on the spot or anything, but do you think, like people have said that global warming is happening, it's caused by humans. Do you think that the circumstances and the consequences are as dire as they're saying? Like we're going to see 4 degrees uh, or whatever increase in the next century, and we're going to be under 10 feet of water. Like if you live in Florida, you're going to be underwater in 100 years. Or do you think this is something that maybe nature will be correcting, we just can't see it yet? Obviously, I'm not expecting an expert opinion, but what do you guys think? Like, weigh in.
I think in general, just as an overall assessment of the human race, we like to think we have more control over things than we may or may not have. So I think there's no question that humans are contributing to global warming, and they're definitely not helping it. But I tend to think that we have less control over it than we hope we have or think we have.
Yeah, we're inherently narcissistic about our impact.
Yeah.
I just went to a talk by Sir David King, who is the chief climate advisor for the United Kingdom government.
Mhm.
And what else? He does a bunch of stuff. He is a big deal. Like he talks with the IPCC on things
Mhm.
of that nature. Looks pretty bad in his opinion. Is the best summation I can give. It's like we are, if we burn on our current trajectory, we will hit, I think, like 6 degrees by 2050, 2060 or something like that. Or be in a scenario that would lead to 6 degrees of global warming.
Mhm.
But the other, like, I don't know, did you watch Cosmos? Where they talked about,
I love Cosmos, yes.
yeah, I mean, Cosmos is amazing, but they've been taking like ice cores and studying the carbon dioxide
Yeah.
content in the ice cores, and like for our viewers who may not have watched Cosmos, like
Sorry, but go on.
the isotopes of carbon found in the ice cores would suggest that the majority of it is from the burning of fossil fuels. So yeah, I think we're doing some bad things, and we need to clean up our act.
Yeah,
Hopefully, hopefully, this future side chat can make its way to policymakers, and we can
it definitely will.
Yeah.
we can get some good work done. Selectivism.
Slacktivism. Like this post to make a change.
It's worked so well for every other cause.
Well, look at Coney. Come on, he's like, everyone knows who he is now.
Well, did anything happen?
That's not the point, Rob.
Did we get those girls back? I don't know. It's a hashtag until it's not anymore, and then nothing really happened. So I guess we'll move, and I got this very timely post this morning from a guy on Google Plus, not to me, but just in general, about alternative energy, and he gave a few statistics on, specifically on solar energy.
What's the user's name, Rob? Maybe we
His
can.
name is Alex P.
Okay.
And it looks like his photo is a prom photo. But anyways, he names off a few statistics, and apparently, if we're taking his word for it, which I am, because he seems legit. He's posted. I see him posting a lot, and he's got sources and everything.
Ooh, sources.
On June 9th of this year, Germany got 50% of its electricity from solar power. And in the last 22 years, they've increased their solar capacity 16,000 times, which is pretty impressive, I would say. And they're not even
based on what I've heard.
Yeah, and
So you said that's not true? Or that
No, I'm
is true?
saying I've heard similar things.
Oh, okay.
and basically now solar power is cheaper. It's selling at 5 cents per kilowatt hour when natural gas is selling at 7 cents, and coal is selling for 10 cents per kilowatt hour. Which, I mean, I hadn't heard that before, but it sounds extremely promising. That was from March of this year in Austin. Looks like.
Texas?
I don't know. It seems like Texas. Yeah, Texas. Yeah.
Your face for that was for. I don't know.
No, because I was looking through it, and it said Austin everywhere, and I'm like, I'm assuming it's Texas. It talks
Oh,
about,
okay.
but it just called it the Austin Project, so I was like, maybe it's not, but it is.
All right.
They're signing the city-owned utility Austin Energy signed a 25-year agreement with a solar company called Sun Edison for 150 megawatts of solar power at just below 5 cents per kilowatt hour. So like the movement is happening, and coal is on its way out in terms of electricity. And in addition to coal, people have talked about all the bad things about burning coal in terms of the fact that it leads to increased CO2 and all that. But there's also lots of horrible stuff that's locked up in the coal that gets released when you burn it. Nitrates and sulfates and mercury.
Hydrogen sulfide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
reading that Asia, well, everyone has been replacing their conventional energy with alternative. Asia has actually ramped up their coal burning,
Yeah, I've heard that
and
too.
so they use 50% of the wait, was it? Yeah, 50 or 80% of the world's coal, maybe 50. I'd like to say.
Probably 50. It sounds
Yeah.
more.
Which yeah, it's kind of like, oh well, why would they ramp it up so much? But then it got me thinking like, well, they have like over 4 billion people in Asia, so it makes sense that with half the people, you'd use half the coal, maybe. Uh,
Yeah, but that China and Asia are pretty different.
no, oh, I guess yeah. Well, they said Asia Pacific.
Okay.
I don't
Hmm.
know. It was
Yeah.
Asia. It wasn't just
Asia
China.
Pacific isn't 4 billion people.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe they separated out Russia then.
maybe.
Yeah.
The
Anyway, that's
the main
interesting.
part is that China is developing really quickly into an urban society. Like they have, I was looking the other day, Beijing and Shanghai are both in like the top five. Like they were comparing those two cities with other countries in the world, and like Shanghai, either Shanghai or Beijing, one of the two has more population than Canada. They both have more population than Australia. Like it's
Mhm.
super populated, and they're getting denser and denser. So they have this need for energy, and they're going to coal more than
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah.
Well, they also have like carte blanche in terms of like their climate change
Right.
things like IPCC because they're still a developing nation and we can't say like, listen, you can't really do that because we did it a couple hundred years ago.
Mhm.
So like they're entitled more or less to have that phase of easy energy as they expand.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I mean it makes sense that they would do it because it's super cheap and it works really well. It's
Mhm.
horrible for like pollution and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey Nick, you saw the solar roadway video, right? I think.
I sure did.
Yeah, that's
Solar
pretty funny.
freaking roadways has been a
Yeah.
tagline in my office for weeks now.
So did you see the rebuttal video for that one?
No, I didn't, but I heard a
Oh,
lot of rebuttals.
okay. Yeah, there's one main one, I guess, and they touched on all the points that I thought when I was watching that roadway video, the original one. I'm like, okay, sure. But from the sound, one of the main rebuttals was not just the cost of retrofitting and integrating it, but just transmitting or transporting, I should say, the energy to the people that need it.
Yeah.
So basically, population density is a big factor for that. So it sounds like a developing nation that's highly populated, like China, would benefit greatly from integrating solar into their energy chain, just because they are so densely populated that you're not going to need to transport a whole bunch to get it to the people that need it. So
Yeah.
so
And
that's
also, like,
promising, I guess.
the original, like, the idea behind solar roadways in the first place was like the company wants it to start out as like parking lots and things,
Right.
and like maybe expand into roadways.
Yeah.
And I mean, the roadways could potentially be a logistical nightmare, but if
Yeah.
you had it as like, a parking lot or a driveway, I could see that being much more
Yeah.
feasible.
Yeah. Well, the rebuttal for the parking lot idea was that during the day when the sun's out, there's going to be cars parked in the parking lot, so they're not going to get any sun. And then
Touche.
when they're empty, there's nighttime and there's no sun. So they were saying, well, it'd make more sense to have like a parking shelter with solar panels over top, where the cars park underneath. Which I was
Yeah,
like,
that is a good idea.
that's a really good idea. So why aren't they doing
Why
that?
don't we do that?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's kind of like that makes more sense, and it's actually a good idea.
So for the 5 people on Earth who haven't seen this video, is it as simple as like it's just integrating solar panels into drivable surfaces? That was the
Yeah, they're hexagonal blocks of solar cells that are, and then running parallel with the road is the electronics and electric equipment, I guess, to transport the energy from the road. And there's a whole thing with like putting LED lights in the road for the road markings and all this kind of stuff, and it's like you're not going to see those in the daytime, so I don't know. There's a lot of leaky points to it.
They've talked a lot about roads. They've talked about using piezoelectrics to get power out of roadways just because of the cars driving on them.
For yeah, okay. I was gonna say what's piezoelectric?
It seems like there's a lot better places to put solar panels than onto roadways because like they're just going to get degraded so quickly.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Yeah, I've actually heard of, I don't know what it is that gets powered. I think some traffic signals in some places get powered by that. As cars drive through the intersection, it powers the traffic signal.
They use magnetic fields to detect cars in most, like the busy intersections in Canada, at least in metropolises. So I definitely see that being possible.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you guys? Nick, you had so many notes on this one.
Yeah, I really did. Because I didn't know that I would be here.
That's why I didn't make any notes. I'm like, Nick's covered it all.
I don't have my notes in front of me, Rob. Is there anything you'd like me to talk about in particular?
No, I mean, talk about. You had so many good things. I don't want to steal my ideas. Talk to me a bit about wind. We haven't talked about wind yet.
Wind.
Not Wind Mobile.
We've already talked about Wind Mobile.
No, I have very different feelings about wind power and Wind Mobile. Very different feelings. I don't know. Wind seems like a great idea. Super excited about it, especially if you can get it offshore. Because like here in Ontario, like we have the Great Lakes, and if you could get some offshore wind going on, like just along some coastal areas, I'm sure you would see a lot of really good power being generated from that. Although, like, I think a couple logistical problems right now are that we need to extend the grid and have the grid be able to intelligently adapt to, rapidly changing, not loads. Mike, what's the opposite of a load?
An unloading?
Anyway.
Rapidly unloading overburden pressures? Oh, are you talking about electrical load?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not an electrical engineer.
You're not? Why are you
Well,
even
shit,
here?
Mike. Shit. I don't even know why you're here.
I know what you mean, though.
Yeah, but, like, the other thing is, like, the magnets and stuff like that, they're going to end up putting kind of a strain on the world market, it looks like. If you, like, want to supply half of the world's power with wind or somewhere in that general vicinity, like, for the really good magnets, you're going to need a lot of the rare earth elements, and
Yeah.
that could cause problems.
Yeah.
because they're so rare.
Yeah,
It's kind of an ironic
incidentally,
thing now that you mention that. We're talking about, using solar and wind and nuclear or whatever, and it's going to require a lot more electronics.
It is.
People are worried about the environment, and mining is like
I
one
don't
of the
think
worst
people are
things
worried
ever.
about that.
But that's the thing; it's not in the spotlight, but it's just as bad
No, but
as
I mean, in terms of electronics, people are talking about recycling mobile phones and these concentrated elements getting into the environment, into our water, basically. I don't think people are worried about using rare earth magnets in wind turbines because like that stuff's if they go out of commission or whatever after 25 years, that's going to get recycled. That people aren't going to be
yeah.
throwing wind turbines into landfills.
to meet the
What about home?
demand to meet the demand to create the new devices, whether it be solar panels or whatever. You're going to need to get those rare earth metals from somewhere.
Yeah, but
Incidentally, are we all familiar with the Ring of Fire development in Northern Ontario?
no,
No. Why don't you
Oh,
enlighten us?
it doesn't sound good. It sounds like volcanoes.
no, it's like they found. What did they find? It's like one of the biggest deposits of anything ever found in Ontario, basically.
But it's not uranium.
No, it's not uranium, but it's a lot of rare earths that
Chromite.
I think they're related to like the magnets in wind turbines and stuff like
Chromite.
that. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, chromite.
So we should get on developing that, maybe. Lots of wealth, lots of potential for wind power.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, people are taught. I mean, in terms of environmental impact of solar energy and all these energy methods that require mining, there are going to be detrimental effects to mining. But and I can't back this up with any facts, but I feel like if you're using electric power to extract these minerals, it's a lot better than if we're talking about using gas-powered vehicles and in the mining operations. Because
Well,
I
that
mean,
would be the dream.
in terms of digging a hole in the ground, there's not a lot of bad environmental impact unless we're talking about all the energy you have to put in that's non-renewable.
Hmm. I think that's where you have to look at the what Nick was talking about, with the kind of
And
start
energy.
of the process to the end, and see if it's actually worth your energy
Right.
doing that
And
from
whether
both
it's
from both an emissions basis and a energy basis. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that was another thing. On wind power.
Yeah.
Like, I sent you guys that link, but like you can actually see on demand like what Ontario's generation makeup looks like and like what each individual generating station is putting into the energy mix. And like we have so many wind farms around, like we are the biggest, I'm not sure if it's production or capacity, but we're like one of the biggest wind producers in Canada now, Ontario is.
Right.
And it doesn't even come close to like the generating capacity we have from hydro and nuclear. Like not even close. Like when you were saying, yeah, there you go. Like when you say, Austin, Texas has a contract for like 150 megawatts
Yeah.
from solar power. It's like,
Thing.
you know that scene from Facebook? It's like a megawatt isn't cool. You know what is cool? A gigawatt.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, like you can see up at the top there, like nuclear is almost always putting out about 10 gigawatts of power.
Right. Huh. Yeah. I always find it interesting because it's rarely talked about um, in the discussions about energy, but in improving our battery technology and our like, possibly our capacitor technology, but our ability to store electrical energy would also decrease the burden a lot on relying on these conventional fuel methods because at this point we're burning a bunch of coal and just in case we need energy like if they burn coal and nobody uses the electricity, like they have to burn. They don't want people. Nobody wants to turn on their light and not have any electricity. So they have to produce an excess, but there's no way to store this excess electricity. They just burn it off, or they just let it. I don't even know what they do with excess electricity. I just know that it's not stored.
Well, I think there's also like the issue with a coal plant or something like that. Actually shutting it down and trying to start it back up again would just be a
Yeah,
tremendous
yeah.
exercise.
Mm.
Although we don't have any coal in Ontario anymore,
Right.
which was a big issue in the election, if you remember.
Although there is an other section here, and it's something. What is it that's not nuclear, gas, hydro, and wind?
It is
Spice?
wood, actually.
Yeah.
Like up in
Is
Atakokan,
wood
it
that
was.
different from coal?
Well, it's
Is
carbon neutral is the thing.
I-
It's
Is it though?
Is it?
yes. Like,
Oh, because it's taking in the CO2 to grow and then you're burning it, so
Yeah.
just putting it back.
any carbon dioxide that is being emitted is from a tree which took carbon dioxide out of the air to become a
If you're
tree.
planting trees, it's carbon neutral. Otherwise, I'm not.
No,
Does it-
like I'm
does it
not
actually-
sure if you're sorry, I'm not sure if you know where Atakokan is. It's like Lake Superior, I think. It's either Superior or Huron, like up northern Ontario. Like all they've got up there is trees. Like
So have they
there's
worked
the
out?
plant operators and a dickload of trees. Like
Right.
So they worked out the numbers and it actually is carbon neutral, like, or is that just kind of in theory it is?
well, there's transport, which would probably make it like neutral-ish. But the other issue at play is like trees have root systems and stuff like that that get left over, and they leave leaves, which become part of the duff. And so I don't know. I haven't like looked at the numbers for that, but it's neutral-ish. It's about as close to neutral as you're getting with the current transportation infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Interesting. So when you mentioned that all there are up there is trees, it made me think of the Amazon, where there also were a lot of trees.
We're a lot of trees.
Although I've heard actually good things about the Amazon and how the rainforest is actually there. I don't know if they've stopped deforestation completely. I'm sure they haven't, but they're slowing it down and planting more trees to try to actually make that okay again.
Yeah, I've heard there's hope in the Amazon anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean, part of the problem in the Amazon is you have such a tremendous biodiversity. Like,
Yeah, they're still discovering new species all the time.
yeah, in the boreal, not so much. There's like 5 kinds of trees, and
Squirrels.
yeah. Well, I don't know. Can squirrels even live that far?
There are squirrels.
Sure,
but-
there are squirrels. There are like rodents and stuff,
There's,
but
like,
it's
big-
nowhere near the biodiversity.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, yeah, you did mention that in the notes, Nick. I'm sorry. They switched from
Sweet.
coal to wood.
Okay.
You actually
Yeah.
wrote it down.
So can you summarize switchgrass for us?
Yeah.
For the viewers that may not know or have heard about
I
it?
know Nick actually can't summarize switchgrass, but talk about switchgrass.
I have significantly more mixed feelings than when I originally blogged about it.
Figured.
The marginal farmland in Canada. So, like, as far as I know, and this is based on the last estimates I read, like, the farmland that we have in Canada that's not really good for much, you could grow switchgrass on it because switchgrass grows almost anywhere. It will enrich the soil over the course of, like, growing for decades or however long.
Sure.
It's better than carbon neutral because 50 to 60% of its biomass is below the soil and can be like stored geologically speaking. And it grows like a weed, and potentially you could get biomass energy out of it, is the long and short. It's not quite as good as wood as a biomass fuel source because there's a higher proportion of ash and stuff like that that's produced, so it doesn't burn quite as cleanly. You need to do more, like, cleaning methods, basically.
Sure.
But if you want a baseline fuel based entirely on renewable fuels, I don't know what you're going to do other than switchgrass, basically. And sorry, the estimate was that if you took all the marginal farmland in Canada and grew switchgrass on it, then harvested and burned, you could theoretically meet the energy demands of Canada with it.
With
Wow.
just the switchgrass?
Or something like that. Like there's a lot of potential energy if you're talking like all the marginal farmland in Canada.
Would that so they would all have to be not necessarily constantly, but in a cycle planting grasses. If you're talking
Oh,
about
that's the other thing. It's a native perennial, so you don't actually have to do planting. You plant it once, and they have experimental stands of switchgrass that have been going for over 25 years with one planting, so you don't have that
okay,
energy input either. It just keeps coming up year after year.
is the ground fertile enough that it doesn't need does it need tending to, or how does that hold up?
Um,
Because all I've heard is that when you're planting, and I have no experience in agriculture, no background or whatever, but all I've heard is that the ground dries out and there's no nutrients, and unless you are enriching the soil, it's not how does it work there? Does it?
that's a great question. I don't know much about the fertilization. Like, if you fertilize, you will get more out of it, but um, another practice they do is every 3 to 5 years you have to just sacrifice that year. So you basically cut it down and burn it to get a bunch of the carbon and nutrients back into the soil. So, you can increase the nutrients going back into the soil the more times you burn that stand. But you do get better returns out of it if you fertilize, but it depends on how much energy you want to pump into that sort of application.
Interesting.
Is there anything I'm missing on switchgrass that I should be going over?
I don't know, Nick.
I used to know the figures for how many joules per hectare you could get out of it, but
Yeah.
we should probably just include links to that particular article.
Yeah. We'll
You can see the wall of facts.
We'll plug vodka equations in the
Yeah.
link.
Please do.
Friend of the show.
So you mentioned that now you're less on switchgrass. So what are you more bullish on?
Honestly, nuclear. The more I find out about nuclear, the more I think it is the fuel source of the future. Until we figure out fusion, anyway.
Well, that's still nuclear, but yes.
Yes, sorry. When I say nuclear, I mean uranium-235 fueling the CANDU reactors.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Ontario has 3 nuclear generating stations with, I don't know, a handful of reactors apiece at least.
Yeah.
And for that land footprint and the fact that it produces 50% or greater of our energy needs all the time on demand, where else are you getting that kind of energy? Without, you could do it with switchgrass, but I don't think you're going to get the EROEI out of it that you will with nuclear.
Right.
Can you comment on nuclear waste? How that's managed? I've only ever heard bits and pieces of opponents against nuclear as far as waste goes.
I can. I have recently sat in on lectures on the current Canadian disposal scheme for uranium, spent uranium fuel. And man, it's really cool. It's good ideas. Lots of them, and decades of focused research on the matter. So what specifically do you want to know about?
Is it basically just, bury it in an isolated container of cement and hope that it doesn't leak? Is that how you handle it, or?
No, it is in. First off, the site selection is super important. It's got it. Or the current scheme, anyway, would have it be buried in the Canadian Shield, and I'm pretty sure this is the case. I might be spouting off confabulations, but they even to the point where they want to find individual crystals of granite to bury it in, and like those crystals can be like several kilometers wide. But like, I mean, the shield is super geologically stable as is, but then you want to get into an individual crystal of the granite, like that's
Mm-hmm.
that much more stable geologically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
The storage containers themselves are dry to start. They're dry. Worst case scenario, you get water inside the canister, but I'll explain a little more. You have your fuel bundles, which are encased in zirconium alloy. Then you have like airspace. You have a steel canister outside of that, which, strong, machinable, that kind of attributes. That is coated with copper to resist any possible corrosion that could happen.
Hmm.
That is encased in, I think, just like fill or something like that. And you have not a capstone per se because it's not a singular stone, but you have clay, like a big hunk of clay that's sitting on top of the canister too to like hold it all down there. That might be encased in concrete. I'm not sure. But that is like for one storage canister, and you're thinking of having like a network of these canisters underground with a single point of entry.
Mm-hmm. So it's like a field of nuclear turduckens, kind of.
Exactly.
And how deep below the surface are these buried?
I gotta compose myself after nuclear turduckens.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, that's a turducken if ever I've heard of it. I think you're going at least a kilometer down.
Oh, that's pretty deep.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's like 1 to 5, I think, is what they're thinking.
1 to 5 kilometers?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big difference, but that's crazy.
Yeah, it
To
depends
drill
on
that
where
deep.
you're drilling.
Yeah.
Like, they're not, like, to the point where they know exactly how they're going to do that phase.
Yeah.
My group is working on the containers and, like, the relevant science there.
Oh, that's with the corrosion that you're working on?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was being funded by... I'm not sure if I can say that.
Redacted.
I was being funded by an international group concerned with disposal of nuclear waste, and they decided we weren't worth the money. I wonder what they're going to do with their nuclear containers. They don't know.
Neither do we.
So the one thing that I always found curious, and I probably could have found this information pretty easily, is there's all this talk about nuclear fuel rods being spent and then needing to be stored.
Yes.
Also being hazardous, like very hazardous.
For, like geological timescales, yes.
Yeah, so I always wonder, how are we not reusing these?
We're not reusing them. You can, kinda, maybe, sort of.
Sort of
But-
reinvigorate them a little bit. I don't.
Yeah, but the effort you would have to go to then re-refine the spent fuel is going to be significant. Like, apparently that's one of the reasons that we're not using thorium fuel currently. I don't know if you've heard about, like, thorium reactors, and
I've
from-
heard about thorium too, yeah.
from internet videos on the topic of thorium, I thought it was just like the silver bullet and the solution to all our problems. And then I talked to a guy about thorium, and he used to work for Atomic Energy. And he was like, well, we did think about it because, that's our job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the problems with thorium is that it doesn't burn nearly as cleanly, I guess, as uranium. So you have to...
Explain that a little bit. How does it not burn cleanly? Like, what is burning and why is it not clean?
So, sorry, it doesn't burn as efficiently. When I say burn, I mean,
Right, obviously, yeah, yeah.
uh, like, what do I want to say? It's not fuse, but it's
Fizz.
fizz.
The
It
energy
doesn't
return,
undergo fission as
the
well.
energy return is less per unit.
Like, thorium requires an external source of neutrons?
Okay.
Neutrons. It requires an external source to actually, like, keep it going, as far as I know. Like, uranium, you can just start it and it will keep going because its decay cycle will support that.
Right.
But I think with thorium, you need like a constant
There's not
external
enough
supply to
neutron.
keep it burning.
Okay.
almost
Sorry?
like an almost like an oxidation type thing, where you need the
Ish.
oxygen to keep it burning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but you need like a constant external supply, and just because of how it decays, you're not going to get nearly as much out of a pellet of thorium as you could out of a pellet of uranium. And so you would have to like constantly be taking fuel out, refining it, and then putting it back in, whereas you don't have to do that with uranium. And like the way CANDU reactors are set up, we could be using thorium right now. Like you would just have to change the fuel and it would be fine. It would just work because CANDU reactors are great. Um, but yeah, we don't do it because it's just a lot harder than using uranium.
There's no half and half. You couldn't just stick one stick of uranium in there. Did I just
Like,
blow your
you mean
mind?
like a bundle of uranium and a bundle of thorium?
Or have like just one, like all thorium and then one uranium, just for the neutrons.
Rob, you should work in his
Don't,
research group.
There's a
I
there's a
don't
thing
know if
that
that. No, like I don't know if that would work because you would have to like take out the thorium while the uranium is still burning, and I feel like that would be.
it's a job
That's
for
really,
robots.
yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, because
Haven't you seen AI films, Rob? Robots have feelings too.
there, there was an XKCD at one point that talked about this. I'm pretty sure.
Probably.
I think it was a what if, and he was talking about what would happen if you went diving in a nuclear reactor tank, like a water tank.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you'll be fine unless you get like within 10 feet of it, and then you're basically dead no matter what you do. Um, but I always found it weird that these rods are so potent. Like humans were involved in some way to get them from the ground where they're potent to a reactor where they're even more potent, and then once they're spent, like technically they're spent, they still have tons of radioactivity, but it's just than less than it was, and maybe you're not getting the energy return you wanted, and so now you're getting rid of them. But humans are involved in this process the whole way. We're controlling the process. It's not like we're just sitting there. We found these reactors and they're going, and we're getting energy out from the hot water. It's that, like, I find it very weird that we went through all this trouble to get the uranium out of the ground. We're using some of the radioactivity, but then we're just putting them in a mountain and forgetting about them,
I
or putting
think
them.
like I so yeah, theoretically, like they are still emitting energy, and you could get warmth or something like that from it. But when you compare the energy they're outputting now to what they were giving when they were fizzle, or like undergoing fission, like at a really high rate, like it's a huge energy difference you're talking about. And like the problem with the waste isn't so much that it's not so much that the radioactive decay is particularly hazardous. It's like it's still radiation and that's bad, but you're talking more alpha particles than like beta and gamma
Right.
particles, like the super high energy, really dangerous ones. It's just the fact that they're still emitting like alpha particles and like the low energy stuff. It's just that they do it for so long.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
it's the
So
length of time that they do it that determines the high level waste.
okay. So when I picture nuclear, maybe I'm wrong about this. When I picture nuclear, it's always nuclear decay that's powering these reactors. But in some cases, you're saying it's fission.
Fission is nuclear decay, yes.
but they're not just letting off, like, this uranium isn't just letting off an alpha particle. It's decaying into other stuff. Like,
Yeah.
you're splitting. So what are
Yeah.
the waste products you actually get? I was just assuming it was spent uranium, because that's what was
Um,
described.
no, it's damn it. You should know this. Um,
Let's hope your
no, like
professor isn't
every time
watching.
you're getting like I don't know, like when I'm pretty sure the first process is like it's splitting.
Yeah.
So like it's not uranium anymore. It's a bunch of other stuff usually.
Okay. But so that stuff isn't necessarily reactive anymore. It's the uranium that's still in there that's reactive. But there's just not enough of it to make the process worthwhile anymore.
I think it's like I think what's left over is the ultimate fission products. They're still radioactive.
Okay, so they're
It's
not
just
small
they
enough.
emit for a very, very long time.
Okay.
This is my understanding.
I'm gonna have to do more research into
Like
this
one
now.
of my,
Yeah.
I don't know, one of my profs is gonna like watch this and be like, "Oh, Nick."
Well, we'll do a follow-up just on nuclear energy at some point.
I hope so. That'd be great.
Yeah.
No, because there is, like, even I'm now, having done a bit of research into alternative energy, I still have obviously some misconceptions. Just because I've heard spent nuclear fuel rods, like they're talking about spent uranium, but it's not uranium anymore. If it's undergone fission, it's something else.
Well, you would have to look into the actual makeup of a fuel pellet to see
Yeah,
how
and there's
much
obviously
uranium
different.
is in there.
It's not all the exact same process going on, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do an FSC on oil and gas too, just to even things out.
That's a topic for past side chat.
There's a lot of science in there, and people are still innovating. So, just
All
saying.
right. There's people
Did
still
you-
trying to figure out gravity.
Mike, did you want to just like pause and like just drop a mic there for us?
They're still innovating. Who are
Okay,
these
there
people?
we
I've
go.
never heard. I've not heard anyone innovating in the.
I was just at a conference 2 weeks ago, and
Have you heard of fracking, Rob? Fracking's new.
It's new. It's really good. It's really healthy for everyone.
no one's saying it's healthy innovation. It's just innovation.
You know what would be really good for the environment?
Earthquakes. More earthquakes. Maybe you can extract some energy from that somehow.
Hey, there you go. See, now that's thinking.
Geoshaky energy.
Uh, is there anything? Is there anything else we need to talk about that we can't save for the later nuclear discussion? Because you
You should
still
also have an episode on bicycles.
the science of them,
transportation.
or the energy side.
Oh, future of transportation. That would be good.
Yeah. Buses.
Yeah.
Trains, planes, automobiles.
Maglev,
Less so automobiles.
Monorails.
Virgin Galactic.
Monorail. You know, I hear those things are awfully loud.
Oh no. Nick, there's a couple more points here. Are you okay? We've hit about an hour. Are you okay with stopping, or do you want to go over the last few?
Are there any?
There's
You'll have to refresh my memory.
garbage incineration.
Oh, yeah, I think that's another great idea. Like, that would be an other in that energy makeup.
That was the plot of Back to the Future 2, right? And 3?
No,
Generating
wait.
garbage to go.
No, but that's with fusion. It's a different kind of burning.
Okay,
It
sorry.
was a Mr. Fusion unit in the DeLorean.
Yeah, you're right.
No, I think like that could
Not bad.
drain off of landfills and actually get some useful energy out of it instead of just letting it sit and stew for ever.
Although that might create a whole new fuel source. Underground pockets of methane, and
No, they do actually generate electricity from landfills.
they do, yeah.
Yeah, like they burn off the methane, or sometimes they can spin a turbine with the pressure of the methane being given off, and then they burn it, or I don't know, could they heat water with it? Anyway, they burn it. I know that much for
Yeah,
sure.
they do. That's
We could just like cut out the middleman and like actually burn it and get good energy out of it.
yeah.
I'm not sure how much energy we'd be talking about, but I don't know. Seems like a
It
good
seems
idea.
sketchy, but yeah, it seems like the plot of a Simpsons episode, another Simpsons episode. Yeah.
I'm just picturing like Dorito powered, and then you smell you drive past the landfill and smell the waft of burning hot dogs and
It'd
I
probably
don't
be
know
the smell of cow fart is what you're. It wouldn't smell like Doritos.
What if we feed the cows Doritos? What then?
I think we basically are. Their feed is basically just high fructose corn syrup at this point.
Well, in the
I think
States.
there's
Apparently it's a lot better in Canada.
isn't it just corn? Or are they actually feeding them corn syrup?
I don't know.
There's
There are some I've heard definitely that are getting basic, like not necessarily refined junk food, but the equivalent, the non FDA approved equivalent for animals.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's another topic for another
we
episode.
should we should go on factory farming. There you go.
Yeah.
I was gonna say another one. I have like a question for Mike because I'm not sure how much oily, gassy stuff you do, but is there any discussion?
It's very gassy, by the way.
Good. Is there any discussion of like using solid oxide fuel cells to like get energy out of oil or natural gas?
Yeah, I'm not that side of oil and gas, but
Oh, okay.
I just saw that note and I'm not familiar with the concept, so maybe you could enlighten us.
So
What it
it's
is.
like a fuel cell in that you pump fuel through it and get just useful energy out of it. But like a solid oxide fuel cell is a slightly different material, so it's not like platinum or something super expensive. It's something less expensive, which is kind of the point. But if you heat it to a few hundred degrees and then pump the fuel through it that way, apparently, like you're going from just straight up thermal energy generation, which is only like 30% efficient when you account for expansion of gases and stuff like that. You're jumping to like, I don't know, I want to say 70-ish sort of range where you're converting like the carbon into direct electrons and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I have a slide from when I was giving presentations on fuel cell stuff that's like the inequality between Helmholtz free energy and Gibbs free energy, and it's like, so if you do the math, you can see that Gibbs is always greater than Helmholtz, and that's why we like fuel cells. But I don't know, I think
all our audience, Nick. Even I was in one of those classes, and I still don't remember any of that.
Rob. You give out grants, don't you? God. But yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like that would be a good idea. They actually have like some commercial versions of them where you can just like throw in, like the fact that it's several hundred degrees allows you to just throw in whatever fuel you want and it should work.
Hmm.
Like you can finally tailor them to specific applications, I'm sure, but
So you just put it up. So if you have a natural gas plant, you put it upstream of the generator prior to the fuel being burned. So it's just a pre-primary source of energy from the fuel.
I'm not exactly sure. But
Okay.
I'm saying, like, instead of burning it, you could just cycle it past whatever the fuel cell setup is.
So you're not cycling and then burning.
No, like in a fuel cell, you like run the fuel on one side of things and oxygen on the other side, and you get direct electron transfer in between.
Okay.
I remember
And it's great.
Yeah.
It's like hydrogen fuel cells in cars. The idea behind them is probably like platinum or something like that because it works really well. Need to mine some platinum from asteroids for it to work super well, but
That's
like you're cycling hydrogen on one side of the fuel cell and just air on the other side, and that's supplying energy to an electric motor. And it's just like X factor more efficient than burning it straight up.
That seems really efficient in terms of return on investment. The technology that requires a meteor hitting Earth full of platinum to.
Well, no, it's like the guys in charge of Google are trying to mine from asteroids.
Yeah, they are.
Because
Well, they're trying everything. They're literally just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
it's a great idea.
yeah.
But like, I guess they were saying if like you mine even one asteroid efficiently, like the price of platinum is going to collapse on Earth, which will have some economic implications. But platinum's useful for all sorts of different catalysis, and I feel like that would be great for everybody. Rob, I was stuck on your camera there, and you're just like, what's going on, Rob?
One of our viewers posted a Q&A.
Oh, nice.
Oh, boy.
What did he or she say or ask?
They're asking, do you guys see the Q&A app, or is it just me?
No, it's just
Just
you.
you.
They're talking about, I don't know. I don't want them to leave. They're talking about free energy from a gyroscope.
It's impossible!
And then they posted a link to their community. I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna.
Spam bot?
Yeah, I was gonna. That sounds kind of spammy.
It's either a spam bot or someone that doesn't believe in the second law of thermodynamics, and we don't care to talk to either of those sorts.
Well, yeah, I agree, but I'm gonna.
Way to alienate our very first Q&A non-family member.
Yup.
You did it. I didn't do anything. I just agreed with you. They're promoting their community, basically, is what's happening. And so I'll share the link with you guys, but I'm not going to talk about the community.
That's okay.
Is there anything else that we need to talk about? I don't think Nick has any other. I think we went over all your notes.
Yeah.
Sweet. I've been studying for this podcast for years.
we'll come back to it here.
Rob, your last point is farther fetched ideas. So did you have any in mind?
Well, we talked a bit
for
about
a future.
That's a good one. There are crazier ideas. When I was doing when I took a geology class, we were talking about different kinds of energy that didn't rely on non-renewable resources. There were lots of different talk of not necessarily wind turbines, not like I guess it's hydroelectric technically, but putting generators in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for tidal?
I was gonna ask about that because when Nicky brought up the wind in offshore, that came to mind about the turbines in the tides.
So that was, I mean, it's not necessarily far-fetched. It's just something that not a lot of people are even aware is a thing.
Yeah, I think the next, because you could do some gravitational generation with asteroids too, maybe. I don't know if you rounded them up and put something up.
We don't need any asteroids near Earth.
Not that near Earth, just above the space station. That's all I need.
Are they big? Like, are we going to be powering these asteroids around so that they stay in geocentric orbit of some kind?
Well, I don't know. I guess once they lose enough energy, they'll just fall to Earth, which wouldn't be a good idea.
No. I mean, what if we crash them into the moon and then mine them from there? Because at least that's a big body.
I'm just thinking as far just gravitational generation of energy, but.
Where are you getting this? Where is this energy coming from?
I'm just thinking. Okay, geez, farther ideas.
No, hydroelectric is technically gravitational potential energy being converted into electricity.
Right.
I actually remember, a couple weeks back, I was thinking about, gravitational energy. I was like, I wonder if you could, harness that from anything. And I was like, there's a lot of, gravitational energy in, streams and rivers and stuff. I wonder if you could harness it. So, I was like, and I just invented the dam. A few centuries too late. Brilliant.
That was like the XKCD that was talking about how.
Yeah.
I had exactly the same experience.
Yeah. I just invented a website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, yeah, I think space wise energy harnessing would be a good
I mean, if
far-fetched.
energy is if we're bringing stuff back to Earth, there's always for me going to be the issue of we don't really have that good of control of stuff coming at Earth, and I don't know that it's a good idea to start aiming things at Earth.
You're gonna be aiming. You'd have a space elevator.
Oh, so we're going to build a space elevator.
No, you just go
I
to
thought that was
the
a given.
thing. You go to the asteroid, you pick up what you want, and you bring it back.
Just throw it in the direction of Earth. Just be like, oh, huh.
We'll get
Catch.
the Canadarm way out there and just pitch
Yeah.
it to us.
We'll get a really big net, and
Oh, this is getting ridiculous. This is not what I had in mind when I was thinking far-fetched ideas.
you wanted far-fetched, Rob.
I
That's
got
exactly what we're giving you.
It's exactly what I got. But yeah, the far-fetched ideas I was thinking of were more along the lines of in the ocean, just using things that are happening anyways, like the tides, to generate electricity.
I think that's a great idea, but like, how much energy can you actually get out of that? Like,
But-
without just completely blocking off the tides altogether.
Yeah.
Well, like they're talking about doing it in the English Channel, for instance, which is super wide, and there's a
Okay.
lot of tide going in, like, or something like the Bay of Fundy, which basically empties and fills up.
Yeah.
Regularly.
It's like the biggest tidal
Yeah.
thingy
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
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 The thingy, yes, the technical term.
Talking about someone who took 3 geology classes, so I know my tide.
I like how you just, I know my tide. I'm up on tidal shift.
It's true, I am. All right. Well, if there was nothing else really to say, we'll save the rest of the energy topic for another follow-up. Because I do think there's more to talk about nuclear, and not just nuclear for power, but nuclear for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's fusion.
Yeah. We could do a whole episode on the
Yeah.
future of nuclear
Then-
fusion,
Then there's cold fusion.
and we'll just
No,
sound
there isn't.
ridiculous. There is talk. There are people that have built fusion reactors like in a house, like a small. I don't know if they actually proved that it, or they have actually gotten it working yet, but that they're trying to build it like on a smaller scale, which I thought was pretty interesting.
A fusion reactor.
Look it up. I'll find a
I
link. and
will. I'm skeptical. I feel the gyroscopes show better promise.
Yeah. No, I agree. There are more promising things, but if we can make nuclear energy on a small enough scale that you could have one for each community, and it would generate enough energy for the community, I think that'd be a good thing. I don't know that we're there yet, or that we're even near it, but I think that's should be the goal. Is not necessarily to have have giant nuclear reactors powering a whole province, but to have smaller scale ones. Because
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
distributed power does have like intrinsic advantages, even like from a military strategy standpoint, even like that communities can function independently of one another, like for fuel and stuff. But I mean, you're also looking at I want to say economies of scale, but I don't think that's quite what I want to say. Like efficiency of scale. Like,
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure a giant nuclear reactor is going to be more efficient than a teeny one for like London or whatever.
Right, but in the very rare case where it does melt down, I would much rather have a small nuclear reactor than a giant.
Melts down this far.
See, I'd rather have a giant reactor melt down 100 kilometers away from me than one in my backyard.
Well, it wouldn't be in your backyard. It would be.
It'd be in
Well,
someone's
listen
backyard.
to the NIMBYism that just showed up. Not in my backyard, says Mike.
Not
Well,
in
he-
anyone's
So when
backyard.
they steer the giant asteroid towards Earth, Mike's like, just don't do it in my backyard, okay?
Beam it into, I don't know, northern Canada somewhere.
Yeah,
Rob's
exactly.
backyard. Fuck that guy.
Hit some caribou or something.
Yeah. This is done. We're done here. I I don't know
All
what we're
right.
going to talk about next week. I have a couple ideas, but we'll probably talk about what Google did with Google I/O. But
Sounds good to me.
TBD.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. I'll see you guys next week then.
Right.
See you then.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye.